Welcome, I'm Dave from Sweet City Honey Farm. Welcome back, or welcome, whichever it is. I'm just glad to see you. Today we want to talk about Mordanting wicks. It's like, what? Yep. Mordanting wicks is a really pretty important thing. And I failed to talk about it in a video I did in February on doing votive candles. And I talked quite a bit about making votive candles and why I make votive candles, because they're the only things that sell from wax that I make. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that. If you want to see the whole diatribe on all the fancy wax molds I bought that never sold, you can take a look at that. But I produce a lot of wax. That's about a third of what I've produced this year from my hives, and I use it for waxing frames. Again, I've got videos on all that stuff, and yeah, waxing frames is kind of an important thing. So, well, right. But making candles is a really cool thing because I love burning beeswax candles. I said it in the last video, beeswax just burns so clean, and the flame from a beeswax candle is the same light frequency as sunlight, which is also super, super cool. And there's no soot from it. They are just calming. And there's some science, I don't know, I'm a little shaky on this, but there's some science that beeswax burning also ionizes the air around it. I don't know how much would ionize the air around it, and I'm thinking I'm not gonna keep myself this close to the beeswax for the ionized air, but hey, if it does, it does. But in order to do that, you've got to have a proper wick, and the proper way to do wicks in these candles is to mordant it. And part of the reason for that is it helps the wick do lots of good things to make the candle burn. Beeswax is a hard wax, so it's tough to get it to burn so that and what you basically want is you want the wax to melt all the way across the top. Do I have a votive? I do. Let me go grab one. I hurried. So, votive, I've been burning this candle. In fact, I got done doing a timing on this. This wick was mordanted, and just doing a test for advertising for my market booth. I got 21 hours of burn out of it. 21 hours. That's crazy. So one of these candles burning 21 hours happens because you are mordanting. So what is it? Mordanting is basically treating cotton wick with a combination of borax, table salt, and a little bit of water. Not a little bit, it's a cup of water anyway. I'm gonna show you how to do that all in a couple minutes. But why do you want to mordant? What's the reason for it? I touched on it a second ago. It burns even cleaner than just a regular wick. And it burns hotter, so it's going to help the wax melt. Burns cleaner, so you're going to have less soot. The other thing is it helps the wick stay straighter and stiffer. And don't we all want a wick straighter and stiffer? I sound like Johnny Carson. What do you think, Ed? Okay, so straighter and stiffer wicks. It's important stuff. Also, it regulates the temperature, so you don't have a lot of variation, so you get a very even flame from it. Just that beautiful beeswax burning flame. Also, it's really the traditional method of improving these natural fiber wicks. I talked about it in the votive video. This is the wick I found that works the best. It's a 2.0. It's a 2.0. Trust me, I just ripped the O off. That's something, I don't know what happened. But it's a braided wick. Burns great and is the key. So why not just buy a wick from, a pre-waxed, pre-done wick? I bought these candle scents. They're number 2s. They will work, but they just don't work as well. You get a lot of tunneling. It doesn't burn over the top. It's not the same flame. So again, mordant, that's the way to go. How do you do it? It's really simple. I said before, and I'm going to go through the formula here in just a second about how you put this whole thing together. But real quick, it's like, where did this come from? I want to give you some history because it actually goes way back. So here's a quick history of how mordanting came around. Before the 1800s, candle wicks were just simply braided yarn or linen, and they didn't burn well. They burned very, very poorly. They would curl unpredictably, so your wick would be like just a mess, kind of all over the place. They produced a lot of soot and they burned very, very fast. And oftentimes you get halfway through a burn and you had to trim the wax. It just wasn't good, but it was kind of just the way it ran. So early chandlers discovered that soaking wicks in a combination of mineral solutions helped it burn more steady, cleaner, more evenly. So recipes varied by region, but they settled on a combination of borax and salt. Why borax and salt? Well, salt is, I mean, sodium chloride, it's everywhere. I mean, salt is very easily and readily available. You can find it in the spice aisle. I don't think they found it in the spice aisle back then, but it was available in the 1800s. And borax, which is sodium borate, was available, but it had to be imported. Mostly it was imported from Tibet and Persia. That combination was what worked for them. It became available then in the United States somewhere in the mid 1800s when they were doing some mining and they discovered here. So it became the common standard practice all the way through and up until the 19th century. So, and a lot of candles at that point in time were made out of beeswax because that was something that was readily available and it burned very well. So why is it called mordanting? Well, mordanting comes from the Latin word, and I'm going to murder this, and I'm reading it, but mordere. In Latin, that means to bite. And what it basically does is when you soak this in the borax and salt solution, it works its way into the fibers of the cloth. Basically, it bites in. It's actually a term used for dyeing clothes because when you mordant clothing with a dye, that dye bites into the fiber and stays in the fiber. So at least that's what I've been told. So borax also changes the fiber so that it burns a better burn. Mordanting also changes the fiber's burn characteristics, so you get a better burn out of it. Finally, the treatment becomes part of the wick itself. So you've got the borax and the salt actually are impregnated in and become one with the salt. Become one with the salt. Become one with the wick. I don't know. It just works. Okay, so why is it not commonly used anymore? Well, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, candle making changed, science changed, and manufacturers started coming out with self-trimming wicks that burned themselves up so you weren't having to trim all the time. And they came out with pre-waxed wicks that you could buy. So industrial candles use basically standardized wicks, and those were wicks that were basically not needing to be mordanted. That's why it declined. But why is it so important to use with beeswax? Well, for a couple reasons. Paraffin wax burns at a really low temperature compared to beeswax, and the mordanting helps that burn. Also, for beeswax candles, you really do want to use a natural fiber wick. You're just going to get a better burn out of it. And you know what? It's tradition. And why not? So it's kind of a cool part of it. It's part of the whole process of, if you're going to be a chandler, candle maker, you want to do it some ways. You want to do it in the traditional methods because they work. Mordanting works for beeswax. Let's show you how it's done because it's really pretty simple. So this is, as I said a second ago. Hey, I got pretty good at that. It's a simple solution. Michael Young at last year's North American Honeybee Expo talked about candle making and the whole process of mordanting. So this is his recipe. There are lots of other recipes out there. I've used this one. It works great. So I've got to shout out to him for his recipe. And I don't think it's like a trade secret or anything. They've been doing, as I said, borax and water and salt for a couple centuries now. But so we're going to turn our handy 2-burner light gourmet on, and you're mixing in 1 cup of water with 3 teaspoons. I just had the thing in my hand. 3 teaspoons 3 teaspoons of borax. So I bought this borax at the local grocery store, and and this is, unless you're going to use it for something else, if you're just using it for mordanting your candles, I think this is pretty much a lifetime supply. But it's a great laundry detergent booster, cleaner, cleans, removes stains, neutralizes odors, scares the cat. No, it doesn't say scares the cat. I need my cheaters on. Oh, cleans cat. Okay, anyway, enough of that. And then you need 2 teaspoons of salt. And I don't think you have to be exactly exact on this, but just table salt is, I think, works fine. And it has worked fine for me. So we dump in 2 teaspoons of that. And then basically you just stir it in. Okay, once you get it stirred in, you just bring it to a boil. Okay, everything's boiling now. So what's the next step? Well, basically you turn off the heat and you take your wick and you decide how long you need the wick to be. And if I'm doing votive candles, we've got a big market coming up, and Christmas time they seem to sell a lot. So you'd measure out basically how long you need your wick to be, and then you can cut it. Now I'm doing 10 of these. I'm not going to do that, but I would then just measure out 10 anyways. It's beyond the point. So I'll cut off enough wick just to give you an idea of where I'm at with it. That'll give me about 3. And then the magic is, this is so crazy difficult, so watch closely. What I do is I put the wick into the water. Okay, now here comes the hard part. Leave it there for 24 hours. That's the bottom line to it. So you leave it there for 24 hours, take that off the heat, leave it there for 24 hours and take it out, and then I hang them to dry. And in fact, this is one that has been drying. It's basically ready to go at this point, except for one very, very important thing. And that is that you have to wax these, because if you don't wax them, you don't get the stiffness. And we talked earlier, it's important. You want a stiff wick. So to get that stiff wick that everybody likes, you need to wax those. And waxing is very, very simple. You get a pan of wax, get it melted, and you put the wick in the wax and let it sit there for, I usually let it sit for about 30 seconds to make sure that it penetrates all the way through. And you just pull those out, and I lay them on a table and let them dry straight. I might pull on them a little bit. In my votive video, I talk about that, but it's not a tough process, but you have to wax them, otherwise they don't stay straight. The other thing I do, which also helps, is I apply these tabs to the bottom. And I'll put a link to all these down below in the comments. I'll put a link to the recipe, because that was so hard. I know it's just like blowing everybody's mind to think of 1 cup of water, the 3 borax teaspoons, and now it's 2 teaspoons of salt. I know, for me it's tough. I've got to have it written down someplace. Anyway, I'll put that down in the comments. But you wax these off and then they become hard and stiff. Here is one that is basically ready to go. I will apply these tabs to the bottom. They basically just slide in and you pinch them. What that does, though, is it keeps the wick standing up all the way to the end. So as you can see in this one, I don't know, maybe it's easier in here, but this has the tab at the bottom of it, and it basically burned down to about 1/8 of an inch on the bottom. And that's because it held the wick up. Had I not had the tab in the bottom of it, the wick would have at that point fallen over. So tab at the bottom, and then you're ready to go. So there you have it. It's a pretty simple process, and it will help you with your candle burning. So that's what we got. Hey, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please do. Mostly talk about bees, beekeeping, but you know, a little bit of side things of you know, how are we going to work with all this wax? Just add to the hobby. I hope you've learned a little something today. So anyways, hey, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate it. It's nice to be liked. So if you get a chance and like it, please hit that like button. And you know what? We'll just see you next time. So until then, happy beekeeping, and hey, I guess happy candle making. See you then.